Okay, say that. Let's go. So we're up to Siman Chaf Zayin Halacha Base. Okay, these are very important halachas where we put the Tefillin and various Chatzizas, etc., etc. So says the Mechaba Halacha Base. Chaf Zayin Halacha Base. Haminag Hanochen. The minhag hanochen, the correct minhag is she hayud shel keshet tefillah shel yad. The yud, the knot of the tefillin shel yad should be letzad halev, should be towards the heart, like in other words on the inside, facing towards the body. V'hatefillah olav letzad hachutz, and the actual bias, the tefillin, should be on the outside. So we do this without thinking. If you just picture putting on your tefillin shel yad, the yud, the little knot, it's going to be towards the body, and the bias will be facing the other way. Yesh lizoher, says the Mechaba, shelo tozuz yud shel hakesher me'atfila. This is very important. You see people sometimes slip up on this. That the yud, do you mean by the yud? The yud is that little knot that comes out in the corner of the tefillin. You got tefillin here? Here, let me just show you. The little yud that comes out just by the bias, that should be pressed against the bias, and it should be faced. It should be towards the person. Oh, here's one we prepared earlier. So, for example, here you go. Here's the bias. Excuse me. So this, when you put it on, it's going like that. The yud, this little bit over here, should be first of all towards the body, but this yud should be pressed against the bias. There shouldn't be a gap between the yud and the bias. Okay, I'm going to leave it here because we're going to come back to it, if that's okay. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Kotzen Zayin, Haminig Hanochen, I'm Bebe HaGrosh HaKosov, the din of the Gemara who leferish hagoyin. And this is the din of the Gemara according to the Pirish of the Goinim. Shiei hayud, Sif Kotzen Beis, I'm Bebe HaLocha Shekosavnu Shenochen Lizoher, Shlo Yarchiv Harbe Es Kefel HaKeshe HaNiva. The knot, which the knot shouldn't be too far away. That the retzua goes through it. When you tighten the knot, it should be samach letefillin shel letzat halev. Good. Tal olav. Ein retzulema shetzia tefillin munachas al hayud. Not that it doesn't mean that the tefillin, the bias, the main body, the tefillin should be over the yud. They should be next to each other, like it is here. It should be the bias and then the yud next to it, not on top of it or anything like that. Not underneath it. What the Mechaber is saying is, since you are tilting the tefillin towards the body, like we said in the previous sif, therefore the yud is towards the body, sort of lower, it's above it, as it were. But you're not talking about where the yud is underneath it, it's they're next to each other, so it just means like that. So in that respect, the yud is underneath it, but they're parallel, they're next to each other. Sif Kotzen Yud. Yesh lizoher, there shouldn't be a gap between this yud, this piece over here, and the main body of the tefillin, the bias. The Zohar in Parshas Pinchas is very strict about this. V'yesh machmirim, degam kashem b'toich kison. Even when it's in the bag, that you shouldn't have a disconnect between the yud and the tefillin. Certainly the new tefillin, I think they all have this, they take a sinew, they take a gid, and they sort of tie the yud so it's tight against the bias. Growing up, we never had this, but I didn't see it. But now I think it's almost it's standard practice. Because it's got to be, you'll see in a second, it's because it's less of a problem of Chatziza. ובזוהר פרשת פנחס מחמיר מאוד בעניין זה. ויש מחמירים דגם כשהן בתוך כיסון צריכים לזוהר בזה שלא תוזז כלל היוד. מטעם זה יש נוהגים, כשהיוד עם חוד של גיד עם התפילה, ורואי לבטל זה. Now, he says, but you got to be careful with this. Because if this sinew, nowadays the sinew we have, is just wrapping it around, there's no problem. The concern of the Mishnah Berurah is that the gid that you're tying the yud to the bias is going to go underneath, and if it goes underneath, you've got a bigger problem of Chatziza, because there should be nothing between this, the bottom of the tefillin, and your flesh. So if the gid goes underneath it, you're going to have a problem. So therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, the titera is the main part, the actual structure of this. The titera will please God come across this a lot. And then it'll be chaytzis ben azra tefillin. It'll be a chatzitza between the arm and the tefillin. That some people tie the ritzua around the place of the bicep, underneath the titera. To have a gamkein kachatzitza. Again, this should be directly on the flesh, and there should be no ritzua underneath the actual bias. That's what you should do. Okay, good. Sif Gimel. Haminig hanochen lesakein shemahabarta shebo haritzua iveres. The mahabarta, which is the bridge. Yeah, this part over here, the bridge where the ritzua is going through it. That part, says the Mechaber, tehei munachas letzat hakosef, v'haktzitza letzat hayad, and the ktzitza should be towards the hands. Now we do this without thinking. So when you put the tefillin on, you're going to have the bridge part, the ma'abarta, towards the shoulder. That is further up, and the rest of it is facing down the other way. So says the Mishnah Berurah, v'haktzitza v'iter. And a left-handed person, if a lefty borrows a right-handed person's tefillin, that gets a bit complicated. A lefty borrowing the right's tefillin, he's got to fix it up in a way that he basically switches it around. It gets a bit complicated. Okay, he should basically have his own tefillin. Yeah.
If he switches around, so you turn it upside down.
So you basically have to go like that. You just put it on the other way. It's a bit tricky. But either way, the yad, it's got to be, all the rules have got to apply. So this has got to still be towards the guf. It's hard to show on left. Because remember, if you put it like that, this is a right hand. You're right-handed, right?
Yes, but it's also side to the knot on the other side.
Yeah. Okay, so there's lots of complications. But if basically the lefty is using this, so by just putting it on the same way, then you've got the other side. So basically, he's going to have to go like that.
So they just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to compromise somewhere. Yeah. Okay, Dalit. There shouldn't be anything between the tefillin and his flesh. Whether it's tefillin shel yad or tefillin shel rosh. V'dafka b'tefillin. Aval b'ritzuas. In other words, between chatzitzas, between the ritzua and the person's skin, ein lahakbit, the Rashba is less makbit about that. Says the Mishnah Berurah, lo yehei d'chsiv al yodecha, v'tefillin shel rosh ksiv bein einecha, and therefore it should be literally on the flesh and nothing else in between. Dover chutzitz, afilu chatzitza koldu, even a tiny chatzitza, you got to avoid. Even if you got some sort of insect, some sort of lice, a crawling lice, there shouldn't be any hefsek between the tefillin and your flesh. With a dead one, the offer or dirt, you got to be very careful. Just make sure when you put tefillin on that the flesh is clean, there's no insect there, there's no dirt or anything like that. Nira, the masher ritzua chaytzetzes, that which the ritzua is chaytzetz, lefa'amim bein tefillah l'b'sarei, lo mikra chatzitza. He says that if the ritzua is in between, sometimes it's not called a chatzitza. The min b'mina eina chaytzetz. That's coming back to what you were saying. Because min b'mina eina chaytzetz. The mabush esrat shetakti le'el, b'sifkat nyud mashma d'nochen l'chatchila l'hachem b'zeh. And therefore, ideally one should avoid having any form of chatzitza between the tefillin and the flesh. Did you want to ask a question, Shmuel? Tattoo, yeah, that's considered under the flesh, but there are other problems with tattoos. Yeah, okay. Loishna shel rosh. So it doesn't make a difference if it's shel yad or shel rosh. Kosav b'sefer machzah shekel v'ra olai ha'maisa shel oisna noshim is bad. The practice of some people shemegadlin b'lorosehen. They have very long hair. Now this is an interesting problem. Yeah, if you have very long hair, the hair itself could be a chatzitza. So milvad kiuderech shachatz v'gaiva. Aside from the fact, it says in Mishnah Berurah, I don't like long hair. Yeah, it's gaivadik, it's abomination, whatever. I am ashakasav yerdeh sim kufayin ches, because it could be a problem of b'chuksehim lo selechu. You're imitating non-Jewish practices. However, mitzad hilchas tefillin yesh ba'isa ba'nochas tefillin. You could have a problem in your putting on the tefillin. To keep them to gedolim harbe, since the hair is very long. Lekel lemema b'hu hainu ruvasayu. You don't say this is the normal way of having your hair. So when we have hair, this is we have a normal haircut. So therefore, it's not a chatzitza. But if a person grows his hair long, it's no longer normal. And therefore, it will be a chatzitza. And aside from that, with these long hair, you got so much hair there, it's difficult to know if I put it on the right place. So there are lots of issues over there. If you take a quick look at number 15 in the Dirshu notes, what would happen if you've got a guy who comes along with a massive crop of hair, and he says about tshuva, whatever it may be, and he says, "Can I borrow your tefillin?" So is there a shaila of lifnei iver, of you giving your tefillin to this fellow, where it could be a chatzitza, maybe make a bracha levatala? So take a look, 15. If you've got a guy you shouldn't hold back. You should lend him your tefillin. But if you can, tell him, don't make a bracha on the shel rosh, just make a bracha on the shel yad. And if he's not going to listen to you and he's going to make a bracha anyway, don't worry about it. So therefore, don't hold back. Don't worry about lifnei iver. Ein lahakbid, says the Mishnah Berurah Sifkot and Tes Zayin. Ein lahakbid, that means he's going on the Ramah, which says that the major problem is a chatzitza between the bias of the tefillin and your flesh, but between the ritzua and your flesh, the Rashba is not makbid. That we're being makil of the wrappings around your arm. That's the place. But anything which is on the upper part, which is to do with connecting the bias and securing it to your arm, that we're more makbid about. Those people, you ever thought about this? If a person is wearing a toupee, some sort of wig or something like that, and people put the tefillin on top of that, hanikra paruka, I don't know, what does he call it? Paruka, whatever that is, some sort of shite, some sort of toupee. Even if just the ritzua is going over this wig, you've got a problem. If a person's got a head injury and is wearing some sort of bandage or whatever, for example, a person can wear the bias in the normal place, but the ritzuas are going to be put on top of bandages. In that situation, says the Mishnah Berurah, you can put the ritzuas on top of the bandages, which is covering the wound, or on top of a hat, which is like a thin sort of like a tichel type of thing. Even though there is a chatzitza ben haratzus, you would be allowed to put that on and to make a bracha. Because at the end of the day, underneath the tefillin shel rosh, there's no chatzitza. V'chein b'shel yad, and so too b'shel yad. If he's got some sort of wound, even the bit which is around the hand. You cover it up, it should be lechol, which we'll see more in the next sif. So just generally, so the key points to take away is, ideally avoid all chatzitzas. That's the ideal. But underneath the shel yad or underneath the shel rosh, that's the primary place where you've got to avoid all chatzitzas. Underneath the ritzuas, it's less pressing. Some people discuss about wearing a watch, right, underneath the ritzuas. Again, b'diavad it's okay. L'chatchila one should avoid it, but b'diavad it's okay. Let's do hay. It goes quickly. Just keep up the pace. Adam, sif hay. Adam shu Allah l'nazilas. He's got some sort of. The Mishnah would explain what this means, but he's got some sort of hefsek, some sort of chatzitza. V'miyistarich la'aniach tefillah shel rosh al b'soro lo yanichem klal. Then in the situation where there's a massive chatzitza, then you don't put them on at all. Yesh lahatzlo laniach tefillin shel rosh hakova dak hasamach l'rosh. You can put the tefillin shel rosh on top of some sort of covering. V'yechasim epnei haroim. But because it's marasayin, it looks a bit strange. Then you should put your talis over your head, or you should cover it so that people don't. It's not a shaila of marasayin. V'hamanichin, says the Ramah, but derech zeh lo yevarich al harosh. In that situation where you've got a big chatzitza, then you would not make the bracha on the tefillin shel rosh. Rak yevarich al shel yad lo niach. Then you would just make the bracha. Then you would make the bracha on the shel yad lo niach. That's it. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Ol l'nazilas. Pirush. What does that? These strange words mean? Sheyesh lo machoiv oy mechush. He's got some sort of pain or injury or something beroshe. If he exposes his head, he's going to be exposed to some sort of cold. Given since this is a medical, extenuating situation, you can be somech on the rashba, which we mentioned previously. Who was less concerned about chatsitzas, like we said previously. Which we understood to mean that there can't be any chatzitza, it's got to be mamish beinei necho. And l'saim lohem makom, to designate the place where you put it. Beinei necho, that's pointing out where you put it. Umishum l'chola is v'le'lacherem lois leka. There should be a concept of lecholos, that the tefillin should be for you a sign and not be exposed to other people. That's why I'll tell you in a second. Leka b'tefillin sharosh, that does not apply to tefillin sharosh. To bahu ksiv ro kol ameretz, kol amehoretz ki shem Hashem nikro lecho. In other words, the tefillin shel yad, there should be lecholos. That's why you should try and cover the tefillin shel yosh. You put your shirt sleeve over it, or your jacket, or whatever it is. But the tefillin shel rosh, that should be exposed, like the pasuk says. Kishem Hashem nikro alecha. Umikol makom v'ro kol hamaretz. Everyone should see it. Umikol makom tzarich lechasos mipnei harom. I should still cover it because it looks a bit strange. She'enom yodim shel honest. People don't realize that you have got this terrible headache or this medical problem. Yudches tefillah sharosh. V'im yesh lo makah biyad. What if you've got an injury on your hand? You've got an injury on your place where you put the tefillin on, and you need to have some sort of bandage there in the place of the bicep. You're allowed to put the tefillin shel yad over the bandage. If it means no alternative, you're not going to put tefillin on, you can put it over the bandage. Just don't make the bracha. Because according to the majority of poskim, the chatzitza passes. And you would make two brachas, lefi the minig of the Ramah, in the minig Ashkenaz, to make two brachas on the sharosh kadel b'sim l'chavav b'hago. Ach yilbash al tefillah shel yad milmala beged acher kadel lechasoson. But don't let people see you putting the tefillin shel yad on top of a bandage, because it looks strange, it's marasayin. And make sure you put your jacket, your shirt on top of that. Doksiv behu v'hoy l'cholois v'dashin l'cholois v'lo l'acherem. Sorry, he gives that reason. It should be l'cholois and not acherem lois. V'davka al rutia. But dafka to put it on top of a bandage. But to put tefillin on top of your shirt or on top of your jacket, even if you've got a makkah and you're doing it to protect the makkah, that's not allowed. Even if you've got another beged on top of that. A thin head covering. But on top of a thick head covering, it's osa. If you've got a thick head covering, it's very hard to know budiuk where you should put the tefillin. In that situation, extenuating situation, you make two brachas on the shel rosh. And that's this is going on the Ramah over there. Yeah, you make two brachas on the shel yad, and that includes the shel rosh. Because according to many, you only make one bracha anyway. So you make one bracha lahaniach, and that's that. The most important points when you wear tefillin, which are b'shas krishma and tefillah and shemon esra, that if you can, to have no chatzitza whatsoever. Say them. Okay.